Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at a book called Analyzer Actuar Avanzar by Agustín Argelich.
It's a great book,
And
filled with ideas on personal and organizational effectiveness, innovation, and leadership.
Yeah, it's really a book for our times. And it's really cool because it's not some like theoretical academic exercise.
No.
Listen
there.
Argelich has been in the trenches.
Running businesses, leading teams.
Exactly.
And so his insights come from real-world experience.
Exactly. It's all about putting these ideas into action.
Yeah.
Argelich even says that just one powerful idea can spark real change. So our goal today is to find that one idea that resonates with you that you can actually apply.
I love that.
Yeah.
That aha moment that shifts your perspective.
Totally. Okay, so to kick things off, Argelich shares this story about the Polish cavalry charging German tanks in 1939.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I know that might seem a bit random, but bear with me. There's a point here.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
It is.
Because it highlights how crucial it is to acknowledge the true nature of a problem before trying to solve it.
Yeah.
The Polish cavalry, as brave as they were simply using the wrong tools for the job.
Yeah.
They couldn't possibly win against tanks with horses.
It seems almost absurd when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Argelich uses this anecdote to challenge us. What are the tanks we're facing today? What problems in our work or even our personal lives are we approaching with outdated methods or maybe even completely ignoring? Are we setting ourselves up for failure by not acknowledging the reality of the challenges we face?
It's such a crucial question to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
And it ties in perfectly with another concept from the book.
Okay.
This idea of ni ni ni.
Oh, okay.
Spanish term meaning neither study nor work nor want to.
Wow.
He uses it to describe a societal shift towards entitlement without effort.
Oh, I see where he's going with this. It's like expecting results without putting in the work. And he uses a really interesting example to illustrate this. He contrasts the popularity of passive entertainment, like the reality show Big Brother, with the shutdown of the CNN Plus news channel.
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
He's not saying all reality TV is bad.
Right.
But he is highlighting a potential trend.
Yeah.
Are we as a society becoming more drawn to easy entertainment and instant gratification rather than seeking out information learning and actively engaging with the world?
Right.
What does this shift say about our values and priorities?
That's a great point. Think about it in the context of your own life. Do you find yourself drawn to passive entertainment more often than you'd like? Are you actively pursuing your goals, or are you just hoping things will work out on their own? It's definitely food for thought, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Argelich doesn't stop there. He takes us even deeper, examining demographic trends that are shaping the future.
Okay.
Specifically in Spain and Europe.
Okay.
He points out the declining birth rates.
Yeah.
And what he calls the call effect.
The call effect. Tell me more about that.
So the call effect refers to the need for a workforce to drive economic growth.
Okay.
As countries face an aging population.
Yeah.
Think of it as an inverted pyramid with more older people than younger ones.
Okay.
There simply aren't enough young people entering the workforce to sustain the growth that's needed.
Yeah.
This can have massive consequences on things like social welfare systems, potential labor shortages, and even the long-term economic health of entire nations.
Wow, that's a pretty significant issue. So we have these cultural shifts towards instant gratification and a shrinking workforce. And then to add another layer of complexity, Argelich brings in the rise of digital natives.
Right.
He talks about how this generation communicates and works differently than previous generations, which creates new challenges for workplaces.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
He tells a funny anecdote about his son who put busy partying as his status on a messaging app. It perfectly captures that generational gap in communication styles. But the point is, these digital natives are not just the future workforce, they're also the future consumers.
Right. So understanding their habits and preferences is critical for any organization that wants to stay ahead of the curve, right?
Exactly. It's not just about attracting young talent.
Yeah.
It's about adapting to the way they communicate, collaborate, and consume information.
Now, this makes me think about workplaces today. We've got this mix of generations with different communication styles and work habits. Have you noticed this in your own experience? Is it causing friction, or are teams finding ways to bridge the gap?
I think it depends on the organization and how open they are to adapting. And this actually leads us to another shift that Argelich highlights. the rise of remote work and co-working spaces.
Right.
He even shares a story about visiting the president of a Canadian telecom company
Oh, wow.
who completely closed their headquarters because everyone's working from home.
That's incredible. It's almost like the physical office is becoming obsolete. But it's not just technology that's driving this trend, is it? It also reflects eschewing priorities,
Right.
a desire for more flexibility and a better work-life balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are tangible benefits too. Reduced commute times, increased flexibility, even potential cost savings for companies.
Right.
But it also presents challenges.
It does.
How do you maintain company culture when everyone is dispersed? How do you ensure effective communication and collaboration when you're not face-to-face?
It's definitely forcing organizations to rethink traditional work models and find creative solutions now with all these rapid changes happening around us, from evolving workplaces to a shrinking workforce and the rise of digital natives. Argelich emphasizes the importance of continuous learning and adaptation. He calls for organizations to become learning organizations to stay ahead of the curve.
And he illustrates this with a rather humorous anecdote
Okay.
about finding a book on procrastination at the MIT bookstore.
Oh, that's funny.
It's like even the best and brightest minds recognize the need for constant improvement.
It's so true. So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've talked about facing reality,
Yeah.
the culture of entitlement, demographic shifts, digital natives, the evolving workplace, and the need for continuous learning. Are you starting to see some connections here? Because Argelich masterfully weaves these seemingly separate ideas together to paint a picture of the challenges and opportunities we face in today's world.
And that's what makes his work so compelling.
Yeah.
He's not just presenting a laundry list of concepts.
Right.
He's helping us understand how they're all interconnected and how we can navigate this complex landscape
Right.
to achieve greater effectiveness and fulfillment.
Well said. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore even more thought-provoking ideas from analyzer Akshwar Avanzar, including the destructive power of envy, the art of negotiation, and the importance of seeking external advice. So stay tuned, because things are about to get even more insightful.
I can't wait.
I know, right?
Welcome back. As we continue exploring Argelich's work, I'm struck by how he connects these seemingly disparate ideas: cultural trends, economic realities, technological advancements, and even human nature.
Right. He weaves them together in a way that really makes you think about the big picture and how all these factors are shaping the world around us. And one of the most intriguing concepts he explores is the destructive power of envy. I mean, we all know it's not a positive emotion.
Right.
But Argelich goes deeper, showing how it can actually hinder our decision-making and even lead to harmful consequences.
He uses the biblical story of Cain and Abel to illustrate this point,
Oh, yeah.
reminding us that envy is not a new phenomenon.
Right.
It's a human emotion that's been around for centuries, and it can have devastating effects.
It's a story that still resonates today because we see this play out all the time, don't we? Think about the workplace. How often does envy lead to unhealthy competition sabotage or even just a toxic environment? It can stifle innovation, prevent collaboration, and ultimately create a lose-lose situation for everyone involved.
And sometimes it's not even about wanting to harm others.
Right.
Envy can cloud our judgment and lead us to make decisions that aren't in our best interest, simply because we're so focused on what someone else has.
That's a great point. It's almost like envy blinds us to opportunities and possibilities that might actually be better suited for us. It reminds me of that saying, comparison is the thief of joy. Have you ever caught yourself making a decision based on envy or letting someone else's success influence your choices in a negative way?
I think we've all been there at some point.
Yeah.
It's a natural human emotion, but the key is to recognize it and not let it control our actions.
Right.
And speaking of challenging situations,
Yeah.
Argelich introduces the concept of the intractable,
Okay.
which refers to those individuals who are notoriously difficult, if not impossible,
Yeah.
to negotiate with.
Oh, I know the type.
Yeah.
We all have those people in our lives, right? Whether it's a difficult colleague, a demanding client, or even a family member who just loves to argue.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that Argelich categorizes the intractable into 3 types.
Okay.
By constitution,
Right.
meaning it's just part of their personality.
Yeah.
By situation, where their circumstances are making them difficult, and by strategy, where they're being difficult on purpose to gain an advantage.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You need to understand where the difficulty is coming from to effectively deal with it.
Precisely. And he offers some really practical advice on how to navigate these tricky situations, Emphasizing the importance of empathy, trying to understand the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with them, can be key to finding a resolution.
That makes sense. Sometimes just feeling heard and understood can de-escalate a situation. But he also talks about the importance of creative solutions, right? Thinking outside the box to find a win-win scenario.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting because he doesn't shy away from the fact that sometimes the best solution is to walk away.
Wow, I didn't expect that. But I guess there are situations where it's just not worth the effort or the potential damage to the relationship.
Exactly. Knowing when to walk away is a crucial negotiation skill, even if it feels counterintuitive. And this actually connects to another intriguing concept Argelich explores,
Okay.
commitment-phobia,
Okay.
which translates to fear of commitment.
Fear of commitment, that's a new one for me, but I have a feeling it's something a lot of people can relate to. What exactly does he mean by this?
Well, he illustrates this with a clever anecdote about jewelry stores being replaced by lingerie shops, suggesting a societal shift away from long-term commitments like marriage towards more fleeting pleasures and instant gratification.
Oh, I see what he's getting at. It's like we're becoming commitment phobic, not just in our personal lives, but also in our careers, our finances, even our consumption habits. Think about it. The rise of short-term contracts, subscription services that you can cancel anytime, the constant need for novelty, and the next best thing, are we missing out on the deeper rewards that come from sticking with something, from investing in the long term?
It's a thought-provoking question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's not about condemning those choices, but rather encouraging us to examine our motivations and consider whether this fear of commitment is serving us or holding us back from experiencing greater fulfillment.
It's about being intentional with our choices and recognizing that sometimes commitment can lead to greater rewards, even if it requires more effort and patience in the short term.
Exactly. And this leads us to another important aspect of Argelich's work: communication. He has some strong opinions on how we interact in this digital age.
He's definitely not afraid to challenge conventional wisdom. So what's his take on communication in the digital world? Is he all about embracing the latest tech trends, or does he have a different perspective?
Well, while he acknowledges the value of tools like email and instant messaging, he's actually a big advocate for phone calls and video conferencing, especially when it comes to conveying complex or sensitive information.
Yeah.
He argues that the written word can often lack the nuance and personal touch needed for effective communication.
I can see his point. It's easy for messages to get lost in translation, especially when you're dealing with emotions, tone, and context. Sometimes a simple phone call can clear up a misunderstanding that could have escalated through email exchanges.
And what's interesting is that he emphasizes the importance of attention management, which is not just about crafting compelling messages, but also about ensuring that they actually capture and hold the recipient's attention in a world overflowing with distractions.
That's a crucial point. We're constantly bombarded with information, notifications, and demands on our attention. How do we cut through the noise and ensure that our message is actually heard and understood?
He offers some practical tips, like choosing the right channel for the message, being clear and concise in our communication, and even managing our own distractions so we can be fully present when we're interacting with others.
That's great advice. It's so easy to fall into the trap of multitasking and trying to do 10 things at once, but ultimately it hinders our ability to communicate effectively.
And this actually leads to another important piece of advice that Argelich offers: the importance of seeking external advice. He's a firm believer in tapping into the wisdom of experienced individuals outside of our immediate circle, whether it's a mentor, a consultant, or someone who simply has a fresh perspective.
It's like that saying, you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes we're so caught up in our own bubble that we need an outside perspective to challenge our assumptions and help us see things in a new light.
He believes that seeking external advice can be invaluable, especially when we're facing challenging situations or making important decisions. It's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers and being open to learning from others who have different experiences and perspectives.
That's a really powerful point, and it reminds me of something else Argelich advocates for: the creation of a dedicated department within organizations focused on analysis and strategy. He believes this team should be tasked with looking beyond the day-to-day operations and anticipating future challenges.
It's about dedicating time to thinking strategically rather than constantly reacting to the latest crisis.
Yeah.
It aligns perfectly with Stephen Covey's time management matrix, where the emphasis is on focusing on the important but not urgent tasks.
Right.
The things that are crucial for long-term success, but often get pushed aside in the hustle and bustle of daily life.
That's so true. It's like we get so caught up in putting out fires that we forget to invest in fire prevention. And Argelich even draws parallels to military strategists like Sun Tzu and Warren Buffett, highlighting their emphasis on information gathering and analysis as the foundation for making sound decisions.
They understood that knowledge is power and that taking the time to assess the situation, gather intelligence, and develop a strategy is crucial for achieving victory, whether it's on the battlefield or in the boardroom.
And this idea of strategic thinking isn't just for large organizations, right? It's equally important for individuals.
Absolutely. It's about taking the time to plan for our future set goals and identify the steps we need to take to achieve them. And it's about being proactive rather than reactive, anticipating challenges and opportunities, and making choices that align with our values and aspirations.
That's a great point. It's easy to get swept up in the day-to-day, but taking that step back to reflect, plan, and strategize can make a huge difference in our long-term success and fulfillment. And then Argelich introduces this really cool concept of the servo system.
Oh, yeah.
Which might sound technical,
Right.
but is actually quite simple and incredibly powerful.
What's fascinating about the servo system is how he uses it. A self-regulating system that constantly adjusts based on feedback.
Right.
To illustrate the importance of continuous improvement.
Right.
Both for individuals and organizations, he connects into Boyd's ODA loop.
Okay.
Observe, Orient, Decide, Act.
I love that.
Which is a model for rapid decision-making and adaptation in complex environments.
So it's not about setting a plan in stone and blindly following it, but rather about constantly assessing our progress, gathering feedback, and making adjustments along the way. It's about embracing a mindset of continuous learning and adaptation.
And he uses a simple analogy to explain this concept. Think of a thermostat. It's constantly monitoring the temperature and adjusting the heating or cooling system to maintain a desired temperature. That's the essence of a servo system. It's about creating a feedback loop that allows us to constantly adjust and improve.
I love that analogy. It makes it so clear. So in essence, we need to become like thermostats, constantly assessing our environment, gathering feedback, making decisions, taking action, and then adjusting based on the results.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a dynamic process, not a one-time event.
Yeah.
And this leads into Argelich's vision for the future, which he calls intelligent communities.
Intelligent communities. I'm intrigued. What does he mean by that?
Well, he envisions communities that leverage technology, innovation, and collaboration to create a more sustainable and thriving future for everyone.
So it's not just about technological advancements, but also about using technology to connect with others, share knowledge, and create positive change.
Precisely. It's about harnessing the power of technology to build a better world, a world that's more equitable, sustainable, and prosperous for all.
It's a powerful vision, and it makes you wonder, how can we contribute to building intelligent communities in our own spheres of influence? How can we use our skills, knowledge, and resources to make a positive impact?
Those are great questions. And Argelich actually provides us with a real-world example of an intelligent community in action. The success story of Mercabarna, a large food distribution center in Barcelona.
I'm eager to hear more about it. What makes Mercabarna such a shining example of an intelligent community?
What's inspiring about Mercabarna is how it demonstrates the power of public-private partnerships, continuous innovation, and embracing new technology to create a thriving ecosystem.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but also about collaboration, forward-thinking leadership, and a willingness to embrace change.
Exactly, and that's what makes it such a powerful case study. It shows us that building intelligent communities is possible, but it requires a collective effort, a shared vision, and a commitment to continuous improvement.
It's inspiring to see these principles in action and to know that we can all play a role in creating a better future, whether it's in our own communities, workplaces, or even just in our daily interactions.
Absolutely. And as we reach the end of this part of our deep dive into Argelich's work, I'm curious, what's resonating with you the most? What ideas or insights are you finding particularly valuable or thought-provoking?
That's a great question. We've covered a lot of ground, from the destructive power of envy to the art of negotiation, from the importance of seeking external advice to the power of building intelligent communities. What's that one nugget of wisdom that you're taking away from this conversation?
And we'll be back in just a moment to wrap up our deep dive into Agustín Argelich's Analyzer Actuator Avanzar with some final thoughts and key takeaways.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Agustín Argelich's Analyzer Actuator Avanzar. You know, it's amazing how much ground we've covered in just a couple of parts.
Yeah, we have a lot.
From personal effectiveness to organizational dynamics and even societal trends that are shaping the future, it's really impressive.
It is. And one of the things that struck me as we were talking about Mercabarna
Yeah.
is how it highlights the importance of collaboration
Yes.
and a shared vision,
Totally.
which is something that he emphasizes throughout the book,
Right.
especially when it comes to leadership.
Right. It's not enough to just have a great idea or a brilliant strategy. You need people to buy into it, to work together to make it happen. And that's where effective leadership comes in.
And, he makes a really interesting point about leadership
Yeah.
not being a one-size-fits-all approach.
Totally.
It's not about being a charismatic cheerleader or a demanding dictator.
Yeah. Right.
Effective leadership requires adaptability,
Yes.
understanding different styles,
Yeah.
and knowing when to use which approach depending on the situation.
Yeah. He uses this really cool analogy of a polyhedron to illustrate this point. It's like, depending on which facet of the polyhedron you're looking at, you see a different side of the leader. There are multiple dimensions to effective leadership, and the best leaders know how to tap into those different facets depending on the challenges they're facing and the people they're leading.
I love that visual.
I know, it's really good.
It's so true. And he also stresses the importance of leaders being open to feedback
Oh, absolutely.
and external advice.
Totally.
It's about recognizing that you don't have all the answers
Right.
and being willing to learn from others who have different experiences and perspectives.
That ties back to what we were discussing earlier about seeking external advice, right? It's not just good advice for individuals. It's crucial for organizations and leaders as well. It's about stepping outside of your own echo chamber and getting a fresh perspective on things.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that sometimes the best ideas and solutions come from unexpected sources. And this leads us to another point Argelich makes about communication, which is something we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
He's not a big fan of relying solely on email,
No.
especially when it comes to complex or sensitive issues.
He's all about picking up the phone or having a video call, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He argues that while email is great for sharing information, it can often lack the nuance and personal touch needed for building relationships and resolving conflicts effectively.
I can see his point. It's easy for messages to get lost in translation through email, especially when you're dealing with emotions, tone, and context. Sometimes a simple phone call can clear up a misunderstanding that could have escalated through a series of email exchanges.
And he also emphasizes the importance of being mindful of the recipient's time and attention, even when using email.
Oh, yeah.
It's about crafting clear, concise messages,
Yes.
using subject lines that accurately reflect the content,
Right.
and avoiding unnecessary back and forth.
Yes.
It's about respecting people's time and making it easy for them to understand your message.
That's such a valuable point. We're all so busy these days, and it's easy to get overwhelmed by the sheer volume of emails we receive. Being mindful of how we communicate can make a huge difference in our professional relationships. And speaking of challenging situations, Argelich dedicates a whole chapter to the art of negotiation, particularly when dealing with those intractable individuals we talked about earlier.
Yes, and he doesn't just offer vague advice like be patient or try to see their side.
Right.
He provides specific strategies
Yeah.
for dealing with the different types of intractables.
Yeah.
Those who are difficult by nature, by circumstance, or by strategy.
I remember that it was fascinating to learn about the different motivations behind difficult behavior and how to tailor your approach accordingly.
Exactly. And one of the key takeaways for me was the importance of setting boundaries
Yeah.
and knowing when to walk away from a negotiation.
It's about recognizing that not every negotiation can or should result in a win-win situation. Sometimes the best outcome is to simply disengage.
Right. And that can be a tough lesson to learn, especially for people who are naturally agreeable or conflict avoidant. But it's an essential skill for anyone who wants to be an effective negotiator.
It's about knowing your worth and not letting yourself be taken advantage of, even in challenging situations. And as we wrap up our deep dive into Argelich's work, I think it's worth highlighting his overall message, which I think is incredibly relevant for all of us, regardless of our profession or stage in life. It's this idea of embracing continuous improvement.
That's a perfect way to sum it up.
It is.
It's about constantly challenging ourselves to learn, grow, and become more effective in all areas of our lives.
He doesn't offer any quick fixes or magic formulas,
Right.
but rather provides a framework for thinking, a set of principles that we can apply to our personal and professional journeys.
And ultimately, I think that's what makes Analyzer, Actuar, Avanzar so valuable.
Right.
It's not a one-time read.
Hmm.
It's a resource we can return to again and again as we navigate the complexities of our ever-changing world.
It's a call to action, an invitation to become more intentional, adaptable, and effective in all that we do. So if you're looking for a book that will challenge your thinking, inspire you to action, and provide you with a roadmap for personal and professional growth, I highly recommend checking out Analyzer Actuar Avanzar by Agustín Argelich.
It's a book that will stay with you long after you finish reading it. It's full of practical advice, insightful anecdotes, and thought-provoking ideas that can truly make a difference in your life.
And as we leave you today, we want to leave you with one final question to ponder: what's one small step you can take today to apply one of the concepts we discussed? It could be something as simple as making a phone call instead of sending an email, or taking a few minutes to reflect on your goals and how you can be more intentional in achieving them.
Remember, even small changes can have a big impact over time.
Totally.
The key is to start somewhere and to keep moving forward.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Agustín Argelich's insightful work. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.